So, hey guys, today is going to be day 3 of, I guess, Yu-Gi-Oh! Improvement Week. So, today we're going to be covering deck building, but specifically the math portions. So, arguably, the fun portion if you like math, I guess. So, the most important thing I think that we should focus on first is just, do we play, if we play a deck, what number of cards should we put in our deck? And honestly, this varies, and there are actually benefits to running different card counts for all sorts of cards. So just for example, if we were playing, I don't know, we'll go with Centurion, because Centurion's an easy deck to kind of explain, I guess. So we throw in 3 copies of stand-up Centurion, and then we'll throw in copies of True Data. We'll just keep, for the most part, pretty basic core, I think. So it's like this. Throw in all these cards, and we have this now, and then we can go Ash Blossom Joe Spring. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. Imperm. Called by the Grave. And then, I don't know, maybe Bonfire. So now we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 starters. Cool, I guess. And then what else do we need? I don't know. We'll go with Effect Valor, sure, I guess. Sure. And then we'll throw in a few more cards that might be relevant, I guess. Let's see what we have here. Pro, sure. Spells or traps, anything relevant here? I guess we can throw in Triple Tactics Talents. And then I guess you can Peekaboo in this deck, can't you? I mean, like, technically, yeah, I guess. Anything else important? I guess we won't finish the extra deck on this one, but whatever. We have a lot of space with Centurion, huh? I guess Effect Failure, Infinite Impermanence. Anything else? I guess we'll go with Goal and go Spell. Yeah, because why not? I guess. Fine. This is whatever. I guess Centurion is not the best example for this, because of how efficient this engine is, unironically. How many hand traps is this? Wait a second. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Technically, I can cut this, and also this, for more hand traps. We could even technically consider cutting this. But, yeah, for the most part. Now that we have a deck, we're ready to go into the math. So, with all of these different cards, we have different odds of opening each of these different cards in our opening hand. And we can quickly do this to do a test hand, and we'll probably end up with something playable, right? In fact, this is arguably a pretty decent hand. But, alright. With this combination of main deck cards and every single draw I do, that there is a probability aspect to this. So we're going to cover the probability because it's more important than doing just test hands, and you don't even necessarily need to do test hands. Well, sometimes you do end up with bad hands no matter what, so you know, it's just bad luck in that case, right? But what isn't bad luck is just knowing the probability to begin with. So what are the odds that I open Primera in this list? So if I play 3 Primera and my deck size is 40, I will have a 33.76% chance of opening Primera, and that applies to any 3 of. If we drop down from 3 of to 2 of, the probability of opening that is 23.72%, so it's just essentially 10% lower, more or less. So that means my odds of opening Called by the Grave or Bonfire is about, give or take a little bit, 20% chance. So 1 in 5 games that we will open at least one copy of Bonfire or at least one copy of Culti. This doesn't account for like the odds of opening a second card. Like in this case, it would be a second copy of Maxi. If we were to open, or well, it wouldn't be Maxi necessarily, but what card are we looking at again? Oh, called by. Yeah, I'm getting a little mixed up, so let me refocus here. So if we were to want to open, well, I guess, well, if we were to care about opening garnets, the odds of opening a garnet is the same as opening a one of. So a one of has the odds of being open. Let's see. A one of is open 12.5% chance to open a one of in your deck. And then if we were to open same card twice and you only run 2 copies of that card, the odds for that is the odds of that is 1.28%. So that means you have a 1% chance to open, in this case, 2 bonfires. So that's approximately 1 out of 100 games. So if you have 2 garnets, you're a lot less likely to brick. The odds go down by 9%. So that's kind of why you would do that. So if you were playing like Halcyon Turbo, you would have a decent reason to run 2 guys that can be summoned off of your Auroradon because of this, right? And this is also partially why you don't run 3 Geo and you just run 2, because clearly you won't hit that 1 in 100 odds. Like you won't hit it too often, right? I think I hit that at worst like 4 or 5 games in a row where I drew into Geo as well. And that was technically a game I could have won if I just didn't draw any cards at all for a turn, which is wild. Because I lost the game off of drawing a card. Garnets are painful, man, but yeah. So one of like triple tactic silence here, this is 12.5% chance to open this. And if we adjust the ratios of the deck, this will change. So we'll just throw in some filler cards like, I don't know, Mushroom Man and Dark Witch. So what now do you guys think is the probability for us to open a single copy of Primera? So for this will now drop a little bit, but actually not as much as you might think. So the odds are now 30.37%. So it's essentially just 3% lower to open Primera. Well, it depends if you think this 3% is significant or not, because right now in this deck, for example, we're not running any backrow removal. So if we were to instead now go ahead and adjust this to just backrow removal, like, I don't know, we'll go with Red Reboot, Lightning Storm, and then Duster, I guess. We'll go with that. Lightning Storm, Duster. So the deck right now has been significantly transformed from just adding 5 cards to the main deck. So it lowers and adjusts the probability for everything. But the odds, well, somehow every test hand, we just have Primera in every single test hand. It's just every second hand, third hand. Okay, it finally stopped. I think that was like 5 or 6 hands in a row. But yeah, the odds of getting Primera in any given hand is still pretty high because Primera and Trudea are both like 3-ofs, right? So let's just plug this in real quick. So I think we still have, how many cards was it? 3, 6, and then was that 14? Okay, we have 14 starters here, and we just want to open one of them in 45 cards. the odds of opening any of our starters will be 86.09%. Now, if we drop back down, if we were to cut all of our backrow removal out, it goes to 90%. Exactly. Wild number, I guess, but okay. So just by adding in this backrow removal, the odds of us opening a starter has only dropped by 4%. So the odds of us just opening a starter still pretty damn high. And yeah, it's not really problematic here. So if we were then to want to account for the odds of opening backrow removal in 45 cards, this is 5 different backrow removal cards, I guess. So yeah, 46.14%. And if we take them all out because we had none before, 0% chance. So the odds increased significantly. So because of all this backrow removal, our deck still does essentially the same things it did before, but now there is a 50% chance we can just essentially auto win against a controlled deck just by putting in these cards and going to 45 cards, and we essentially don't really lose too much. The only thing we are really worried about now with all this backrow is just like bricking on too much backrow and hand traps like this hand right here. We have no play, so there's a what was it, like 14% chance that we don't open a starter. And if we don't open a starter, our hand might look like something like this. It would be even worse if we had more backrow removal than this, and we just can't really play the game, right? So that's how that goes. But I mean, we do have these cards to kind of stall, so that's like 3 hand traps to stall a turn, and then we, in this case, will top deck stand up Centurion, and we have a play for next turn. Maybe, unless our opponent has a hand trap, I guess, in this case. So we deck build around what we want to do for the most part, right? And going above 40 cards is perfectly valid in my opinion. So if we drop all of the backrow removal and go back down to 40 cards, our odds of being able to beat stun, like assuming they open decent, 0% chance as far as I'm concerned, because we don't have any main deck backrow removal and we won't be able to access any of our extra deck backrow removal. So pretty viable and reasonable to play 45 cards for various reasons. And also sometimes reducing the odds of drawing a card is actually a good thing. Like with Garnets, it kind of depends exactly on the deck. So let's see the odds actually. So if we have a 60 card deck and we're looking to open a card here, a 1 of 8.3% chance. If we were to then do a 40 card, it will go to 12.5. So it's a difference of 4%. So it's like 2/3 the odds. So it's not like that big of a deal, honestly, in the terms of Garnets. But if you run multiple Garnets, it doesn't even help that much because Garnets just kind of suck ass. I open Garnets 100% of the time. I open Garnets and I don't open them, and I don't open them 100% of the time. I don't open them. Yeah, pretty much. So basically what I'm getting at is that probability, if you kind of rig it in your favor, you're more likely to win. You know, well, this isn't quite gambling, but in a casino, well, let's put it this way. There is a reason why they ban advantage players, you know, a player that has advantage over the casino, because they end up losing money in the long run. Even if, for example, you're doing some card counting and you're losing a lot of games, usually that just, well, it can happen, but since you are favored, they will still ban you despite you having taken significant losses. So it's not just about the raw statistics of like what actually happened. You also have to focus on the probability of what should theoretically happen as well, because, you know, being just an advantage player will get you banned despite, let's say, you losing 10 grand despite having an advantage, because bad luck. So that's kind of how it goes with Yu-Gi-Oh as well. Like this list, technically, this is what I might argue is a pretty good list. But you know, maybe we get sacked by too many hands that look like this, because the odds of drawing like hands that are like literally 0 starters and 5 hand traps is, well, 14% not to open a starter. So yeah, it's 14% chance. So it's like 1 in 10 games. So about like 90% of the game, or 90% of the time, I will have a really good play with my Centurion cards, essentially, because they're all 1-card combos. But the advantage to this is notably that I just have more options if I'm at 45 cards, right? So with the backrow example, yeah, with that advantage, and there are a few other decks where this might matter if you're playing against them. Like for example, maybe Bestial. I'll be able to win more games if I cram in 5 Bestials and go to 45 cards against the Gimmick Puppet, right? Yeah. So lots of probability to take into account, and then we also have to take into account our opponent's probability. So for example, with Maxi, there's, well, let's do the quick maths. It's like 30% ish chance for Maxi to be opened, and then for you to open a counter to Maxi, it's like 50 to 60% chance, depending on how many things you run exactly to counter Maxi. And then the odds of Maxi resolving and whatnot, you can do all of that math. And in general, you're actually favored as the person not playing Maxi. So you're doing essentially better, I guess, in theory. And there are times when Maxi will resolve, times when it won't resolve, but the times where it does resolve should be less in general than the times it does not resolve. So for the most part, Maxi just shouldn't be resolving with the ratios you're playing, and you just have to be aware of that. But having a backup plan in case like maybe you don't open the hand that has counterplay to it, like this hand, I don't have Ash Blossom or Called by the Grave for Maxi. I might need a backup plan in case my opponent does have Maxi, but you know, it's only a 30-ish% chance my opponent has Maxi to begin with, so I should just be fine in general. Either way, potentially. Kind of depends situational. But yeah, surprisingly enough, 45 cards, not that bad. And also the benefit to doing this in Master Duel is because it's a best of 1 format, it kind of feels cheesy. If I were to go 45 cards like a build that looks like this, I have no main deck backrow removal, and it's a 0% chance I open backrow removal because I simply don't run it. But if I play against a combo deck, I'm much more favored with a deck build that looks like this. So it also depends on what people are playing, I suppose, right? So if people are playing mostly combo, this deck is actually more optimal than the last deck because I have higher probability to open hand traps and also starters than before. And the backer removal is literally a useless card, and every time I open one, it'll technically be kind of a brick. So that's how that works, I guess. And just general rules of thumb now. The cards that are 3-ofs are cards that you not just want to open, you essentially feel like you need to open. So Premier, I need to open those. So yeah, 3-of. 2-of. So this doesn't apply to like limited and semi-limited cards, but 2-of cards are usually just cards that are good to have, but not like in the need category, like you must open it, right? Like for example, if I play 2 triple tactics talent, that's fine. You know, I don't think you need 3 triple tactics talent, so you in general would probably never see anyone run triple tactics talents at 3. Well, I mean, there are very niche cases where it might be beneficial, but for the most part, triple tactics talents, you'll be playing this at probably like 1 or 2. No reason to go above that. 1-of cards are just going to be in general cards that are either going to be limited or cards you would need for the combo that are kind of like closer to Garnet territory. Like for example, we have MF here, and we also have Gargoyle, which I mean, I don't really want to open these cards at all. but I need to have them in the deck for the deck to function, and that's usually what one-ofs are, and that's kind of how your ratios go. And there's no real reason to run more than one copy of Gargoyle, because it's not like a Garnet, like let's say Geo, which if I open, I actually my deck just ceases functioning, essentially. So yeah, that's painful, very painful. But yeah, just real fast, I guess. We'll also look at this just for fun. What is the odds of opening 3 of here? Or what are the odds of opening a 3 of and three? Yeah, just three of the same 3 of. 0.1%. Well, the fact that this happens so often to me just randomly must mean I'm really lucky whenever I get a full house. The odds of getting a full house has, well, yeah, it's more or less a full house. The odds of getting something like a full house, yeah, I don't even want to know, but yeah. The odds of getting a 3 of is, well, 3 of your 3 ofs, 0.1 percent chance. And then if we were to look at instead the odds of opening 2, that is 3.64%, which is about 3 or 4 in 100 games you'll open duplicates. So let's look for a duplicate. And with 2 same ofs. Nope. Wait, was that it? Was that 2 Droll? Oh, also 2 Trudea. Yeah, okay. It happens sometimes. That doesn't happen like that often. But wait, this is happening pretty often for me. Wow. Simply, luck is a skill, I suppose. Interesting. But yeah. Just knowing the probability is very helpful here. And this is for deck building, but it also applies to technically mid-duel. It is helpful to also know probability. So let's just say, for example, I know my opponent is running Sword Soul. So let's say the game state gets pretty complicated. So let's say I know my opponent activated Emergence for Moyi on the first turn. So we go Emergence, grab Moyi, normal summon Moyi, and then we grab like Blackout, special summon Longwan, do all that good stuff. And somehow I board break them. They have no cards left, but I can't lethal them, and I also get hit by Maxi. So here I'll decide to pass. So if I pass, how many starters does my opponent still have? So in this case, my opponent will have 2 copies of Emergence, 3 copies of Incredible Ecclesia, and then we have Longwan, which I will just assume that this is the case, is not activatable, so it's not really going to be a starter. And then we have, let's see, 3 of, 2 of, 3 of, or 2 of, so it kind of depends. Taya can be a 2 of or a 3 of, depending on like the exact player, but I don't think Taya is going to be run as a 1 of. So that would be 2, 4, 7, 9. Our opponent in their deck right now, then, after getting board wiped, they have 9 possible starters, and for them to draw this as a 1 of, so the deck size might be something like, I don't know, let's say 29. I guess you do draw and stuff, do a few searches in Sword Soul, so maybe it's closer to 28 if we start with, yeah, okay. If we start with, I guess, Emergence. So the odds of our opponent approximately drawing any starter is 32.14% chance. So in this case, 2/3 of the time, this is technically the right play, you know? And we're just going to be completely fine, and our opponent's just not going to draw into like Ecclesia or anything, and they'll just have to pass back turn, and they'll have absolutely nothing they can do to us, right? in a top deck situation, knowing the odds of your opponent being able to draw a starter, pretty important. So this is the advantage to knowing your opponent's deck fairly well, like how their ratios, what cards they play, the odds of your opponent drawing them. So for example, if we were looking at triple tactics talent instead, just like a talent, what is the odds for our opponent to instead top deck like a talents in this case? Let's see. The odds in this case is 3.57% chance. So yeah, about, well, we'll just round up and say 4% chance of drawing a triple tactics talents on like a turn 3. So that's how it goes, I guess. But there's also the factor you have to take into account of, does your opponent actually not have a second Mo-Yi already? Because the odds of that is also around 3.57%. So I don't know. We'll vaguely say maybe your opponent has like there's a 40% chance they will have a starter for the next turn, but a 60% chance they do not if we just pass on Maxi Raw here. But if we make 2 special summons or so, what are the odds of our opponent actually drawing into a starter? So in this case, we'll go look this back in, change this, and the odds now go up to 54.76%, and then accounting for, I guess, our opponent opening another starter, that would be like close to around 60% chance. So 2 and 3 chance that our opponent draws into another starter here, specifically in this scenario. And if you also account for the fact that you have Ash Blossom Joe Spring, then maybe it doesn't matter and you're perfectly fine to actually just pass and let the Maxi resolve, depending on exactly what your opponent is playing, right? So maybe something like a branded, assuming you do like a clean wipe with something like an evenly, just passing with Ash Blossom Joe Spring might be like sufficient after getting hit by Maxi, because your opponent just has no play unless they top that Cult by the Grave, which is going to be like, it depends on the odds, but you might be able to know your opponent does not have like a cult vibe because they didn't use it on the first turn. So it would have to be like art drawn. So that would be something like, I guess we can keep the deck size to around that much, and then we'll do 2 of and calc 7.14% chance. So like a little below 1 in 10 chance of just randomly drawing into a Maxi, assuming they actually have follow-up. But if they don't have the follow-up, it doesn't really matter if they have the called by too much, unless they can use it as interruption and you have no play after like a called by. But yeah, that's where things start getting a little bit more complicated, and honestly a cheat sheet would be useful at some point. But yeah, we're just not going to really have to worry about this too much in game, like, because what happens and you have no control over that, but you know the odds of something happening, and that means you do know that the best call in general will be this play, right? So in general, let's say our opponent has a 10% chance of opening a starter, and they drop Maxi, then I know that passing, it might look kind of goofy, but if I pass here, we're just going to be just fine next turn, and I can just win next turn. Or maybe I also have like Ash Blossom Joe Spring in hand at this point in time that will guaranteed stop their only starter left for their plays. The only card they have that will do something, so we're just fine to also pass in this case, potentially, and not go for lethal for whatever reason. And it's perfectly safe to do so. So yeah, game kind of complicated, but yeah, you shouldn't worry about too many things. The only thing that this really affects is just like, well, the odds of certain plays being good or not, right? So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and there are a few more other probability-based things to kind of cover, but for the most part, this is all of the important stuff. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.